The exploration vessel Aurora Dawn moved slowly through the quiet darkness of deep space. Its engines hummed softly, almost like a heartbeat echoing through the metal corridors. Commander Elias Kane stood near the main observation window, his hands folded behind his back as he studied the endless stars. He was known among the crew as a calm thinker, someone who never rushed into decisions. Even in the unknown, he trusted patience more than fear. This mission had seemed simple when it began. Strange energy readings had appeared near an uncharted star system, signals unlike anything recorded before. The United Earth Exploration Command sent the Aurora Dawn to investigate, expecting perhaps a natural anomaly or an abandoned alien structure. Instead, the closer they moved toward the coordinates, the stranger the readings became. Lieutenant Mara Chen adjusted the sensor panel and frowned. "Commander, the signals are shifting again. They're not random. It almost feels like something is responding to us." Elias stepped closer to the console. "Responding how?" "They change when we change course." Like someone is watching." Silence filled the bridge for a moment. The crew exchanged uneasy looks, but Elias remained steady. Humanity had entered deep space only a few decades ago, and unexpected encounters were part of exploration. Fear could cloud judgment, and he refused to let that happen. "Maintain current speed," he said quietly. "Let's observe before we react." As the ship approached the coordinates, space itself seemed to ripple. At first it looked like a distant cloud, but as the vessel drew nearer, the shape became clear. A massive structure floated before them, larger than any known spacecraft. Its surface moved slowly, almost breathing, glowing with soft waves of light that shifted between colors. "It's alive," whispered one of the crew. No one corrected him because it felt true. The structure extended outward like petals unfolding, revealing layers of organic-looking metal and luminous pathways. Sensors struggled to interpret what they were seeing. Energy flowed through the ship in complex patterns, neither fully mechanical nor biological. Before Elias could issue another command, a beam of light surrounded the Aurora Dawn. It was not harsh or violent, instead it felt controlled, precise. Systems flickered but did not fail. "Shields holding," reported the engineer. "No damage detected." "Can we move?" Elias asked. "Negative, something is locking our position." Elias' mind worked quickly. Whoever or whatever controlled this technology was far beyond human capability. Aggression would be useless. He took a slow breath and opened a communication channel. "This is Commander Elias Kane of the United Earth vessel Aurora Dawn. We come in peace." For several seconds there was no reply. Then the light intensified around him alone. The air vibrated softly, and before anyone could react, Elias felt weightless. The bridge disappeared, replaced by a field of glowing energy. The crew shouted his name, but their voices faded as he vanished. When Elias opened his eyes again, he stood inside a vast chamber unlike anything he had ever imagined. The walls curved smoothly, glowing with patterns that shifted like flowing water. The floor felt solid yet slightly warm beneath his boots. The air smelled clean and unfamiliar. He quickly checked himself for injuries but found none. His training told him to stay calm, observe, and gather information. Figures moved in the distance. Tall silhouettes approached slowly, their forms elegant and unfamiliar. Their bodies were slender, their movements graceful, and faint light traced along their skin like living patterns. They did not carry visible weapons, but their presence felt powerful. One of them gestured, and a path of light formed before him. Elias understood the unspoken message: follow. He walked forward carefully, keeping his posture confident but non-threatening. Inside, he felt curiosity stronger than fear. Humanity had searched for intelligent life for generations. Now he stood face to face with it. The chamber opened into an even larger hall. At its center stood a figure unlike the others. She was taller, her presence commanding attention without effort. Light gathered around her like a crown, and the air seemed to respond to her movements. When she spoke, her voice entered his mind clearly, translated perfectly into human language. "Your resistance means nothing, human. You will be my partner." The words echoed with certainty, but not with anger. Elias felt surprise, but he kept his expression calm. "I don't agree to anything without understanding it first," he replied. The surrounding aliens shifted slightly, as if surprised by his response. The Queen observed him closely, her glowing eyes studying every reaction. "You show defiance," she said. "It confirms our analysis." Humanity values independence above survival. We value choice, Elias corrected gently. What do you mean by partner? She stepped closer. Up close, her features were both alien and strangely expressive. My civilization stands at the edge of collapse. Our traditions have become chains. Innovation has slowed. Conflict grows within our ranks. We require a counterpart, a mind that challenges us. And you chose a human? He asked. We studied your species through transmissions across space. Your kind adapts quickly. You challenge authority. You survive through change. Elias crossed his arms thoughtfully. You could have asked instead of taking me. Her expression softened slightly. Direct requests are often ignored by emerging civilizations. Demonstration of power ensures attention. He almost smiled. Humans don't respond well to being forced. I see that, she replied quietly. Their conversation continued, each word testing boundaries. Elias realized she expected obedience, yet she listened carefully whenever he disagreed. The dynamic fascinated him. She was powerful, yet curious about humanity's resistance. Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora Dawn, the crew struggled to regain control. Mara Chen worked rapidly, attempting to re-establish communication with Elias. Back on Earth, command centers monitored the situation, preparing diplomatic channels while also considering rescue strategies. Inside the alien vessel, Elias followed the Queen through corridors filled with ancient technology. Floating symbols told stories of star systems and civilizations long gone. He sensed history everywhere, victories, losses, and the weight of centuries. You rule alone? He asked. I lead, she corrected, but leadership without challenge becomes stagnation. My advisors fear change, they fear humanity. Fear usually means opportunity, Elias said. She paused, considering his words carefully. For the first time, Elias sensed uncertainty behind her confident exterior. Perhaps she did not truly want control. Perhaps she wanted something else, balance, understanding, or even companionship in leadership. The thought changed how he saw the situation. He was not a prisoner. He was an experiment and maybe a chance for both species to learn. As they reached another vast chamber overlooking the stars, Elias realized the scale of the moment. Humanity had dreamed of meeting alien life, but no one expected such a complex encounter. The Queen watched him silently, waiting for his reaction. I won't agree to be controlled, he said finally, but I'm willing to talk. Her eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time he sensed approval. Then perhaps, she said slowly, your resistance is exactly why you were chosen. Far away, unseen by Elias, groups within the alien empire watched the interaction with growing concern. Some believed the Queen's interest in a human threatened their traditions. Quiet tensions began to rise, setting the stage for future conflict. And as Elias stood beside the alien Queen, looking out at an endless galaxy filled with unknown possibilities, he understood that this moment would shape not only his own future, but the destiny of humanity itself. Elias Kane stood beside the alien Queen as the stars moved slowly. Beyond the transparent wall of the chamber, the vastness of space stretched endlessly before them, but his thoughts were focused on understanding this strange civilization. He knew that every word he spoke could shape the future between humanity and these powerful beings. He also knew that trust would not come easily, not from them and not from him. The Queen turned away from the window and began walking through a wide corridor that glowed softly beneath her steps. Elias followed quietly. He noticed how the environment responded to her presence, lights shifting and pathways opening without any visible controls. It was clear that her authority was not only political, but deeply connected to the technology around them. You wish to understand us, she said without looking back. Yes, Elias replied, and I want you to understand us too. Partnership only works if both sides see clearly. She stopped and faced him. Your words show confidence. Many species would feel fear standing here. Humans feel fear, he said calmly. We just don't let it decide everything. She seemed to consider this carefully, as if measuring the meaning behind it. They entered a large chamber filled with floating displays. Images of star systems, ships, and alien figures moved silently through the air. The Queen gestured, and one of the displays expanded. It showed a vast network of planets connected by glowing lines. This is our empire, she explained. Once united, now fragile. Elias studied the display. Some areas pulsed strongly while others flickered weakly. What happened? He asked. Our traditions became rigid, she said slowly. Innovation was replaced by obedience. Those who questioned were ignored, progress slowed, division grew. Elias nodded slightly. Humanity had faced similar challenges throughout its history. And you believe humans can fix this? I believe humans challenge limits, she replied. Your species survives by adapting. That is what we lack. He folded his arms thoughtfully. Then you don't need a partner who obeys you. You need one who disagrees. The Queen's eyes brightened faintly. Yes. Their conversation continued as she guided him through different parts of the ship. Elias observed workers operating advanced systems, their movements precise but almost mechanical. No one spoke freely. Every action seemed guided by strict rules. He sensed the problem immediately. Creativity had been replaced by perfection. Later, Elias was shown a chamber where advisors gathered. Several tall aliens turned to watch him enter, their expressions difficult to read but clearly cautious. The air felt tense. "This is the human," one of them said through translated speech. "The outsider influencing the Queen." "I'm just a visitor," Elias replied calmly. "Visitors do not reshape empires," another advisor said sharply. The Queen raised a hand and silence returned instantly. He observes, observation brings clarity. Elias noticed the way they obeyed without question. It confirmed what she had told him earlier. Their society relied heavily on hierarchy. He wondered how they would react to human ideas of debate and individual expression. As discussions continued, Elias offered small suggestions. Instead of centralized command, he proposed allowing local leaders to make independent decisions within shared goals. The advisors reacted with visible discomfort. "That creates unpredictability," one said. "Sometimes unpredictability is strength," Elias answered. "Humans succeed because we try many paths at once." The Queen listened closely. He could see curiosity growing behind her calm exterior. Outside the chamber, tension slowly built. Unknown to Elias, some factions within the Empire had already begun to resist the Queen's decisions. Rumors spread that she intended to change ancient traditions because of a single human. For those who feared change, this was unacceptable. Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora Dawn, Lieutenant Mara Chen worked tirelessly to reconnect with Elias. She refused to abandon her commander. The crew analyzed alien signals, searching for any pattern that could allow communication. Each attempt brought them closer, but the alien technology remained far beyond human understanding. Back inside the alien vessel, the Queen allowed Elias more freedom to explore. She watched how he interacted with different members of her people. Unlike them, he asked questions openly and encouraged dialogue. Slowly, some aliens began responding with curiosity instead of suspicion. One engineer approached him privately. "You speak without fear." "How?" Elias smiled slightly. "Humans learn early that mistakes are part of learning. If you never risk being wrong, you never grow." The engineer seemed deeply affected by this idea. Later, Elias attempted to access a communication terminal. He did not hide his intention. The Queen entered the chamber quietly and watched him. "You seek contact with your people," she said. "Yes," he replied honestly. "I won't stay isolated from them." She stepped closer but did not stop him. "Honesty strengthens trust," she said softly. "Continue." Her response surprised him. She truly valued independence even when it challenged her authority. As days passed, their discussions became more open. Elias learned about her long years of leadership. She carried the weight of her empire alone, unable to show uncertainty. Humans, however, valued shared responsibility. He explained how teams functioned through collaboration rather than strict control. The Queen listened with growing interest. Suddenly, alarms echoed through the vessel. The lights shifted from calm blue to deep red. Alien voices filled the air with urgent communication. The Queen's expression hardened instantly. "Internal rebellion," she said. Large sections of the fleet had turned against her leadership. They believed her interest in humanity weakened their empire. Warships moved into attack formation. Elias felt the tension rising around him but remained calm. "What's your plan?" "We respond with force," she answered automatically. He shook his head. "Force alone won't fix the real problem. You said your empire suffers from stagnation. Maybe this rebellion is part of that?" She hesitated for the first time since he had met her. Outside the viewing chamber, flashes of light marked the beginning of conflict. Ships maneuvered in precise formations. The rebels moved with efficiency, showing how dangerous they were. "Let me help," Elias said firmly. "You are not trained for our warfare." "I'm trained to solve problems," he replied. After a moment of silence, she nodded. Together, they entered the command chamber. Advisors watched with clear discomfort as the humans stood beside their queen. Elias observed tactical displays and quickly noticed patterns in enemy movements. "They're predictable," he said. "They follow strict formations." "That is our way," one advisor said. "Then change it," Elias replied. "Break the pattern, use unpredictability." The queen considered his words. Slowly, she gave new orders, flexible formations, unexpected maneuvers, and coordinated movements that broke tradition. At first, the fleet struggled, but soon the rebels lost their advantage. As the battle continued, Elias moved confidently through the chaos, suggesting creative solutions. The queen watched him with growing respect. Humanity's strength was not technology but mindset. The conflict did not end fully, but the immediate threat was contained. When silence finally returned to the chamber, the queen looked at him differently. "You do not submit," she said quietly, "yet you fight beside us." "That's partnership," Elias replied. For the first time, her expression softened into something almost human, relief mixed with admiration. Far away, hidden among the stars, rebel leaders began planning their next move, convinced that removing the human was the only way to restore their old order. And Elias realized that he had become more than a visitor. He had become a symbol of change, and that made him both valuable and dangerous. The command chamber remained filled with tension even after the first rebel attack had been pushed back. The alien fleet slowly returned to defensive formation, but no one believed the danger had passed. Elias Kane stood beside the alien queen, studying the moving lights on the tactical display. Each glowing symbol represented a ship, a crew, and a decision that could change the fate of two civilizations. The queen's advisors spoke quietly among themselves, their voices controlled but heavy with concern. Some looked toward Elias with suspicion, while others watched him with growing curiosity. His presence had already changed the way they fought, and that made many of them uneasy. "The rebels retreat only to regroup," one advisor said. "They will strike again." "They follow tradition," Elias said calmly, "which means they will expect you to respond the same way as before." The queen turned toward him. "And you believe we should not?" "Yes," he replied. "Humans survive because we change faster than our enemies expect." The room fell silent. The idea of abandoning tradition clearly disturbed several advisors, but the queen's attention remained fixed on Elias. She had already witnessed the effectiveness of his thinking during the first engagement. "Explain," she said. Elias stepped closer to the display and pointed at several formations. "Your ships move like one mind. It's powerful but predictable. The rebels know exactly how you react. Instead of trying to outmatch them directly, you should confuse them." One advisor shook their head. "Chaos weakens unity. Controlled unpredictability strengthens survival," Elias said. "Humans learned that a long time ago." The queen watched him carefully, weighing his words. Finally, she turned to her officers and issued new commands. Smaller fleets began moving independently, shifting positions in unexpected patterns. Some advisors hesitated but obeyed. As orders spread through the fleet, Elias noticed something else. The queen was no longer acting alone. She asked for input from others more often, even when their suggestions differed from her own instincts. It was a small change, but it signaled a deeper transformation. Outside the ship, the stars flickered as engines activated across dozens of vessels. The rebel forces responded quickly, adjusting their formation. The tension grew as both sides prepared for another confrontation. Meanwhile, Elias found himself thinking about his own crew aboard the Aurora Dawn. He wondered if they were safe, if they were still searching for him. The thought strengthened his determination. He was not only representing himself, but all of humanity. The queen noticed his silence as they stepped away from the command center for a brief moment of calm. "You think of your people," she said. "Yes," he answered honestly. "Humans don't forget those waiting for us." She seemed to reflect on that idea deeply. "My people see leadership as isolation. Connection is considered weakness." "Maybe that's why things started falling apart," Elias said gently. "Leaders need others just like everyone else." She did not respond immediately, but her expression softened slightly. Soon alarms echoed again, signaling the rebels' return. This time their ships appeared from multiple directions, attempting to surround the Queen's fleet. the tactical display filled with red markers moving rapidly. "They adapt," one advisor said. "Good," Elias replied. "That means they're unsure." The Queen issued orders based on their new strategy. Instead of forming a rigid defensive wall, the fleet scattered into smaller units, each moving independently while maintaining communication. The rebels hesitated, uncertain how to counter the unfamiliar approach. Elias watched closely as the battle unfolded. Instead of direct confrontation, the fleet avoided heavy damage by shifting positions constantly. Human-style tactics, flexibility, misdirection, and creative timing began turning the tide. Suddenly, a new signal appeared on the display. A rebel vessel had broken through the outer defense and was heading directly toward the Queen's flagship. "They target you," Elias said. "They believe removing me ends resistance," she replied calmly. "Then let's give them a surprise." Elias quickly suggested a maneuver that involved redirecting energy signatures to make another ship appear as the flagship. The advisors hesitated again, but the Queen approved instantly. The plan worked. The rebel vessel chased the false target, allowing loyal ships to intercept without heavy losses. The advisors looked at Elias with new respect. "You see patterns others overlook," one said quietly. "It's just perspective," Elias replied. "Humans look for different paths." As the battle continued, something unexpected happened. Several neutral ships within the Empire began joining the Queen's side. They had watched her willingness to change and saw hope for a future beyond strict tradition. The Queen noticed this shift and turned toward Elias. "Your influence spreads faster than I expected." "It's not me," he said. "It's the idea that change is possible." The battle finally slowed as the rebel forces retreated again, clearly shaken by the unexpected resistance. The command chamber filled with relief, though no one believed the conflict was over. Later, in a quiet chamber overlooking a field of stars, Elias and the Queen spoke privately. "You challenge everything we believed," she said softly. "And you listen," he replied. "That's not weakness." She considered this for a long moment. "For centuries I ruled alone, my people expected certainty, doubt was forbidden." "Humans learned that doubt helps us grow," Elias said. She turned toward him fully. "You have changed me," he smiled slightly. "Maybe we're changing each other." Their conversation was interrupted by a message from the communications officer. A faint signal had been detected, human in origin. Elias felt a rush of hope as the screen displayed a distorted image of the Aurora Dawn. "Commander Kane," Lieutenant Mara Chen's voice said through static. "If you can hear this, we're still searching for you." Elias stepped forward quickly. "Mara, I'm here, I'm safe." The connection remained unstable, but the moment carried enormous emotional weight. For the first time since his capture, he was no longer isolated from humanity. The Queen watched silently as he spoke with his crew. She observed the warmth and loyalty in their voices, the trust shared between them. It was something her own people rarely showed openly. After the transmission ended, she spoke quietly. "Your connection gives you strength. It reminds us who we are," he answered. At that moment, another alert sounded, deeper and more urgent than before. New rebel forces had emerged, larger and more organized than previous waves. This was not just another attack. It was the beginning of a final confrontation. Elias felt the tension rising again, but he also felt confidence. The Queen was no longer facing this alone. Her fleet had begun to change, just as her leadership had begun to evolve. As they returned to the command chamber together, Elias realized that humanity's greatest power was not weapons or technology. It was the ability to adapt, to inspire, and to transform even the strongest traditions through courage and understanding. The stars outside seemed brighter now, as if the universe itself waited to see what would happen next. The command chamber felt heavier than ever before. Every officer stood ready, watching the tactical display as new rebel fleets appeared across the star field. Unlike previous attacks, this formation moved with clear purpose. The rebels had gathered their strongest forces, and they were no longer testing or probing. This was meant to be decisive. Elias Kane stood beside the alien queen, studying the shifting patterns of light. He noticed immediately that the rebels had learned from earlier encounters. Their movements were less rigid, more flexible. They were adapting. "They changed," Elias said quietly. "They learned from failure," the queen replied, "as your people do." The statement held both respect and warning. If the rebels had learned from humanity's influence, the coming battle would be harder than anything before. Advisors began speaking rapidly, suggesting defensive formations and concentrated firepower. Many returned to traditional strategies, seeking safety in familiar methods. Elias listened but felt concern growing. "If we go back to old patterns," he said carefully, "they will predict us again." One advisor turned sharply toward him. "Your methods have already brought chaos to our structure. And they also saved your fleet," Elias replied calmly. The queen raised her hand, ending the argument. Her glowing eyes remained focused on the display. Elias could see her thinking deeply, balancing tradition and change. Finally, she spoke. "We do not return to old ways, we evolve." Her decision echoed through the chamber like a turning point. Orders spread across the fleet. Instead of gathering into one powerful formation, ships moved in coordinated but independent groups. Communication channels opened widely, allowing captains to adapt without waiting for central approval. It was something unheard of before Elias arrived. The fleet felt alive in a new way. Outside, stars flashed as engines activated. The rebels advanced with disciplined precision, their weapons charging with dangerous energy. The silence before battle felt almost peaceful, as if the universe paused to watch. Elias felt the familiar calm settle over him. Human training had taught him to focus in moments like this. Fear existed, but action mattered more. The first exchange of fire lit the darkness with bright bursts of energy. Loyal ships dodged and repositioned quickly, refusing to stay in predictable paths. Rebel forces struggled to track targets that moved freely rather than following strict formation. "Uncertainty disrupts their calculations," Elias said. The queen watched carefully. "Your species embraces uncertainty. It gives you advantage. It also scares us," he admitted, "but we keep moving anyway." As the battle intensified, one rebel vessel broke through the outer defense and headed directly toward the flagship. The attack felt personal, focused entirely on removing the queen. "They believe everything depends on you," Elias said. "For centuries it has," she replied quietly. Elias looked at her. "Then let's show them something new." Instead of retreating, she ordered nearby ships to support each other rather than protecting her alone. The flagship moved unpredictably, no longer the center of a rigid formation but part of a dynamic network. The rebels hesitated, uncertain how to respond. At the same time, neutral fleets across the empire began sending signals. They had watched the transformation of leadership and felt inspired. One by one, additional ships joined the Queen's side, drawn not by fear but by belief in a new future. Hope spread through the communication channels. Elias saw it clearly. Humanity's influence was not only tactical, it was emotional. The idea of choice and shared responsibility changed how people fought and why they fought. The battle reached its peak when the rebel leader's massive flagship entered the field. Larger and more heavily armed than any other vessel, it moved forward with overwhelming power. Its arrival silenced even the most confident voices. "That is their commander," an advisor said. The Queen stepped forward. "Open communication." A channel connected, revealing a tall alien figure whose presence radiated cold certainty. "You have abandoned tradition," the rebel leader said. "You weaken our people by allowing outside influence." The Queen remained calm. "We grow stronger by learning. Change brings chaos," the rebel answered. "Stagnation brings death," she replied. Elias watched quietly. He realized this was not only a military conflict but a philosophical one. Two visions of the future stood against each other, one based on control, the other on evolution. When communication ended, the rebel flagship began charging a powerful weapon. Energy gathered slowly, brighter than anything seen before. "They intend to end this now," Elias said. The Queen looked at him. "Do you have another unpredictable idea?" He smiled slightly. "Maybe." Working quickly with the crew, Elias suggested redirecting energy signals across multiple ships, creating false targets and confusing enemy sensors. At the same time, smaller vessels would approach from unexpected angles, not to destroy but to disable key systems. The plan required trust and coordination beyond anything the alien fleet had attempted before. "Execute," the Queen ordered. Ships moved like flowing water, weaving through space in complex patterns. The rebel weapon fired, but struck only empty space, misled by false signals. Loyal ships reached critical positions and disabled the flagship's targeting systems without causing massive destruction. Silence followed. The rebel fleet slowed, uncertain and disorganized. Without their leader's advantage, their formation collapsed. One by one, ships powered down, surrendering rather than continuing a losing battle. Relief filled the command chamber. Advisors who once doubted Elias now looked at him with admiration. "You did not seek to destroy them," one said. "Humans learned that winning doesn't always mean destroying," Elias replied. The queen stepped forward, addressing the entire fleet. Her voice carried calm strength. "Today we chose change, not through domination but through understanding. Those who opposed us are still our people. We move forward together." Her words marked the true end of the conflict. Later, in a quiet observation chamber, Elias stood beside her once again, watching stars drift slowly past. "When you first brought me here," he said, "you told me my resistance meant nothing." She turned toward him, a soft glow surrounding her. "I believed partnership required control. I was wrong. And now I understand partnership means choice." A message arrived from the Aurora Dawn, stronger and clearer than before. Human diplomats prepared to arrive, opening the path for a historic alliance. Elias felt pride not only in himself but in humanity. They had entered the galaxy not as conquerors but as catalysts for growth. "Will you return to your people?" she asked. "For a while," he answered. "But I think humanity's place is out here too." She nodded slowly. "Then stand beside me as an equal, not as a subject." He extended his hand, a simple human gesture. After a brief moment of curiosity, she mirrored it, symbolizing a new beginning. Beyond them, the galaxy stretched wide and full of possibilities. Humanity had taken its first true step into a larger universe, not through power alone, but through courage, empathy, and the willingness to challenge even the strongest traditions. And as new stars awaited exploration, Elias knew this was only the beginning of a story that would be told for generations. The moment when a human and an alien queen chose partnership not through force, but through mutual respect and shared hope.